It's one of the world's largest petrochemical hubs and has been driving Thailand's industrial growth for decades. But critics say the Map Tapu industrial zone has contaminated the area's air and water, resulting in at least 2,000 cancer-related deaths among villagers here. I'm Fauzia Ibrahim. On this edition of 101 East, we ask if Thailand can strike a balance between economic growth and healthy environmental standards. The Map Tapu industrial zone was established over 20 years ago and is a backbone of Thailand's economy. But a landmark ruling to protect the environment is making both foreign and domestic investors nervous. The legal tussle is threatening thousands of jobs and the nation's economy. Selina Downs reports.
It's one of the world's biggest petrochemical hubs. A sprawling site on Thailand's eastern coast. 16.5 square kilometres of concrete and steel. Map Tapu has grown at a staggering pace since natural gas was discovered in the Gulf of Thailand in the early 80s. It's now the country's biggest industrial estate, sustaining hundreds of thousands of jobs and attracting around $10 billion worth of foreign investment. But it's claimed the rapid expansion has come at a cost to both the environment and the health of local residents. Local activists say more than 2,000 people have died of cancer or other illnesses related to pollution emitted from the factories. Late last year, residents won a decade-long battle. In a landmark ruling, a Thai court suspended 76 industrial projects for breaking pollution laws outlined in the constitution. The ruling sent shockwaves through the industrial sector. The financial markets became nervous.
I think the immediately impact is on employment. 40,000 unemployed immediately from the suspension of the project, especially the construction activities.
The government feared investor panic and an $18 billion hole in its pocket.
We have to go by the court decisions. So what the government is doing right now is that worst case scenario would be that the project has to be delayed for about 8 months, which is for the investors better than 2 years or better than a year and a half. So they are quite, I wouldn't say they're happy, but they know what to do now, that they do the environmental impact assessment.
But residents worry with so much money riding on it, the Map Tapu ruling will not be enforced. Noijay Tang has lived in Map Tapu since he was 3 years old. He comes from a family of farmers. With the expansion of the industrial estate, smokestacks have cropped up in his back fields.
These are the smokestacks here.
I believe we've all been affected by toxic gases. It's not like we're exposed to it for a day and then it goes away. We breathe it in every day. We live with it all the time.
The local water, he says, is also contaminated.
So this basically looks like a black hole of unpalatable water. It doesn't look very drinkable.
Noi says he doesn't know exactly what's in the water, only that his family cannot use it. Environmental economist Techarat Sukumnerd has been studying the water and air quality of the Map Tapu estate for the past 10 years, with startling results.
Every type of water is polluted there. Rainwater, fresh water, groundwater is also all polluted. And how you can live in that kind of situation. People have more risk in terms of respiratory system, central nervous system disorder. We also, in terms of cancer, we also found that people in Mattaput area have more risks, 3 times more than the people who live in other parts of Rayong province.
Noi believes it's no coincidence the people of Mattaput suffer from so many diseases.
My mother-in-law died from cancer. Then my mother went to the hospital and was diagnosed with TB. She coughed and had red sores in her mouth and couldn't eat her food. And she died. My son-in-law also died. He was a security guard in the industrial area. The doctor couldn't explain it.
Suthi Achasai represents the residents of Mattaput. He filed the original case with the courts last year.
We can't prove that the cause of cancer and respiratory disease comes directly from the industry. That's why nobody wants to take responsibility. We can see that the industrial sector is not taking any responsibility, and the government does not understand what is happening.
So can you give your personal assurance that any project now given the green light will meet new environmental standards?
Yes, they have to now. No other way at all. I mean, it's not like you say no, then everything is okay. So that's why we're spending lots of money to help taking care of the people in Mattaput. We are not only concerned about the investors.
In fact, many of the companies originally suspended by the courts have since undertaken health impact assessments, appealed the ruling, and resumed operations, like this one in Ting Potasan's back garden.
Since the factory opened here, I can't grow anything because of the effect on my crops. My vegetables get diseased and turn bad.
The industry denies it's at fault. It says the laws are confusing and have been rewritten so many times it's impossible to comply.
I don't think that they're cheating or they're dishonest or try to zigzag, not follow the law. I don't think so. Because the benefit from investment is bigger enough that they can invest for the environmental protection. They can invest to protect the quality of life of the people in the area.
Industrial expansion is not unique to Thailand. It's happening in many parts of the world. But it's the lack of regulation and enforcement of environmental health standards that has many people here angry and concerned. The country now has a real chance to right the wrongs of the past for future generations. That's if all the key stakeholders can agree. It's been left to the former Thai Prime Minister Anand Panyarachun to try to resolve the crisis. He's been appointed chairman of a committee comprising representatives from the government, public and private sectors.
Definitely the foreign investors would like to make their case strong, you know. But I told them quite sincerely that in this type of issue you cannot equate your book losses to the loss of lives or the deterioration of the health of the individuals. They bear no comparison.
Coming up after the break, we hear from both sides of the debate over Thailand's industrial pollution. Stay with 101 East. Welcome back to 101 East. This week we are in Bangkok, Thailand, and we're discussing the economic and environmental impact of the Mattaput industrial zone. Joining us now is Tara BUAKAMSRI from Greenpeace Southeast Asia. Also, KIAT SITTHEEAMORN from the Thailand Trade Representative Office. Thank you very much for being with us today. KIAT, if I could start with you, the companies that are operating in the industrial zone, do they take responsibility for the environmental impact?
Well, they have to under the law, within the limits of the law. And so far in the past, they have been, before you can implement or start any industrial project in the area, they have to go through a process, environmental impact assessment process. And there has been also a number of industrial estate set up within the zone. And the industrial estate also have to follow a certain rules and regulations within the limit of the law. However, in the past, there has been a few incidents. Some industrial plants, we have discovered some leakages here and there, and it's affecting, from time to time, the population within the area. And therefore, when we draft the new constitution a few years back, there has been an improvement in the process of not only environmental impact assessments, but also include the health impact assessment to ensure that the industry will comply with the legal framework fully, and there is no real impact to the community in the area.
Let's backtrack a little bit here. Tara, how is it that these companies were allowed to go for so long, not adhering to the regulations that were in place at the time?
We have to look it into this way. Map Ta Phut industrial estate and the pollution problem there is actually the development at all costs. After several decades of industrial development in the area, 100 kilometer long white beach has gone. Air is not breathable. Water, it cannot drink.
But how did it get to such a bad state? Is this an issue of companies not adhering to regulations, or is it an issue of the government perhaps not taking these companies to task?
After several decades of the development, we've seen severe incidents happening in the area, including what I said in air contamination, water contamination, and soil contamination. So because of we have a law, and I think the lacking is that we don't have the strong enforcement of the law, and because of most of the factory inside Map Ta Phut industrial estate are from foreign companies, multinational. Actually, they operating under Thai law, but far more from international law or international standard. For example, some hazardous substances and toxic chemical is not under regulation in environmental law in Thailand.
You're saying that the Thai environmental regulations do not come up to international standards? Is that what you're saying?
The industry in Map Ta Phut area is actually a special kind of industry, chemical, plastic, petrochemical, and power generation, producing a cocktail of toxic chemical. The cocktail of toxic chemical, most of the chemical in that cocktail is not really under Thai law.
Okay, let me ask you the question that I asked Tara.
Sure.
Was it the fault of the companies not adhering to the regulations, or is it the government not taking these companies to task?
I think the area of monitoring, environmental monitoring and enforcement can be improved. Now, in the law is already there, part to the international standard, I can assure you that. What is lacking is in some countries you have environmental monitoring law, which we are in the process of improving on that, which requires companies to provide continuous report to the government in order to assist in the enforcement process. Now, I have to correct a little bit what he said, that some multinationals company, when they operate in this country, do they operate just within the limit of the Thai laws, or some companies operate at a much more stringent standard? I would say that many multinationals actually operate at a more stringent standard. But obviously there are some cases that if the monitoring or the enforcement is lacking, companies will be lacking in their process as well.
Well, Tara, there are now 25 companies that have still been suspended because they've violated various environmental laws. But the government says that it is quite confident that these companies will be able to pass these environmental standards in the next few months and be able to operate by October this year. Are you just as confident?
I think the expansion of Maptaput industry development should be stopped for the time being, because of we need to go back into the problem in the past and try to correct and try to clean up the act that industry doing there. I think when talking about the international standard, we also talking about double standard that apply for some multinational, which in some case they comply with the international stringent standard, but because of the lack of the enforcement in Thailand, that's why there is a loophole there that multinational use for them to be not to comply with the international.
KIAT, would you agree that it's time for the industrial zone to just stop operating?
I need to even correct your question just now, because what you said, you asked these companies that is suspended is because they are in violation of the law. I said no, that's not correct.
Well, why have they been suspended?
What happened is that under the new constitution, it requires a more stringent process, which means it added on the health impact assessment. And that's why the company was asked to suspend the projects before they can, until they finished the health impact assessment. All these companies, they already been through the process of environmental impact assessment. This is a one-time incident because of the transition between the previous constitution and the new constitution, and therefore the court, asked the company to complete the process.
Are you happy that they will be able to pass this new assessment and be able to operate in October?
Well, I would say that we have not changed the level of controls. So I would not have any doubt.
So nothing's changed then, is that what you're saying?
A lot of things have changed. There is a new dimension into approving the health impact assessment and environmental impact assessment. There is public consultation in the process. There is also a full-party committee to provide, their opinion about the project. So the process is more stringent.
KIAT, we've seen the impact of industrial pollution on villages the world over.
Sure.
This is just one case. Do you think that perhaps these companies should step up and take a more social responsibility, a more social role?
Well, I would say that all parties should work together in order to accomplish that. Government's incentives is equally important. We actually have drawn up a plan in order to provide incentives for companies that already operates within the Maptaput area. If they make more investment to reduce, pollution, air, water, whatever, then they'll have incentives. There could be a program. We have steered away from very highly sensitive, in terms of environmental projects, but more into research and development, value-added kind of manufacturing. We try to also steer away in our policy in order to ensure that next step forward would not really be more harmful to the environment within the area.
Well, let's look at the next step forward. What lessons do you think potential investors should learn from the Maptaput cases before investing in new industrial estates?
Well, as I mentioned, the worst thing for the investor is suspension. Okay, and this suspension came from the fact that there is a transition period. So this incident will not recur in the future. It's a one-time situation, and now we have already established proper process in order to comply with the new constitution. This incident should never occur again in Thailand. However, in terms of environmental and health impact assessment, now we have a better process, a better law in order for company to deal with and to comply with. And I would say that the rules and regulations that we have put in place is pretty much par to any of the international standards. However, we cannot have, we don't have a choice to install industrial estate in any location, in every location we like to, because of the, in fact, it's the raw material. We have in natural gas in the Gulf of Thailand, it has to come up there. So we have to sacrifice a certain shoreline, not to our liking, but in order to bring about this, natural resources so that we can develop industries.
Tara, just looking towards the future, what lessons do you think that potential investors and even the government should learn from Maptaput?
One thing we know that Maptaput has been identified as one of the toxic hotspots in Thailand, and I think well known from other part of the world, and also from investment points of view, I think it's a kind of pollution haven. So they can invest with less stringent regulation compared to international standard.
Where do you get that information from? I mean, you know, it's easy to say things like that, but without justification. But you're damaging the country by saying that without, you know, proper data to back it up.
Yeah, we have data to back it up.
Then show it. Why don't you take that data and talk to the government? You know?
Actually, we bring the report to the government already. We set up some kind of study there, baseline study. For example, VOC, volatile organic compound, never been implemented before, and pollution control department taking it and then set up the standard.
Is the government listening?
The government setting up the standard because of our report.
But again, this is a transition period, as you mentioned a little earlier before, and perhaps this is what it is. It takes time, doesn't
hotspot
it?
in the region, in the area. I think that's a bit much.
Yeah.
You know, because our environmental law is far better than many countries in ASEAN.
Yes, I agree.
So you should give some credit.
The enforcement.
Well, enforcement, I agree with you. And let's work together to improve the enforcement, but not to brand Thailand as the worst location for industry. I mean, I don't think that's fair.
We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. That's all the time we have for this edition of 101 East from the team here in Bangkok, Thailand. Thanks for watching.